Hey everyone, and welcome to the Videntis. It's February 14th, 2025, Valentine's Day. And we're here with another deep dive into the top 3 news stories hitting the Videntis today.
Yeah, even on a day for love, the news cycle doesn't stop. And we have 3 pretty major stories to unpack today.
We've got a story about potential censorship at the CDC. Then we'll dive into a pretty unexpected summit proposal from President Trump. And we'll wrap up with a legal battle that has Elon Musk in the hot seat.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that while these stories might seem like they're from totally different worlds, health, foreign policy, and TED, they actually all touch on this central theme of power.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's jump right in with the CDC story. This headline really caught my eye. The CDC, America's leading public health institution, is facing potential censorship under a new directive from the Trump administration.
Right, this directive is causing quite a stir. It basically restricts the use of certain terms like gender, transgender, and LGBT.
Wow, so how did this come about?
Well, it stems from President Trump's initiative to eliminate government programs that promote what he calls gender ideology.
I see. So what kind of impact could this have on research in public health?
Well, imagine you're a scientist studying a disease outbreak, but you're forbidden from using certain terms in your research or when describing your findings. This could lead to some serious issues.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a problem.
Exactly. If researchers can't accurately describe their findings or target specific demographics, the data becomes less reliable, and that could lead to, poorly informed public health policies.
And probably a decline in public trust as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces.
That's a great analogy. And to make things even more complicated, we're in the middle of this bird flu outbreak.
Right, and this is where the rubber meets the road. Because of this directive, research on the bird flu outbreak has been stalled. And this delay could have serious implications for containing the outbreak and protecting public health.
So it's a really critical situation. We'll definitely be following this story closely. Okay, so let's move on to our next headline. President Trump has proposed a summit with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. This was a real surprise. Can you help us understand what's going on here?
Sure, this proposal suggests a major shift in U.S. foreign policy. Trump says that his focus is on achieving global peace and nuclear disarmament.
That's interesting.
This summit could be an opportunity for these leaders to discuss some major issues, things like reducing military budgets and nuclear arsenals.
That's pretty surprising coming from this administration. To add another layer of complexity to this, he's also advocating for Russia's return to the G7. Now, for those who may not remember, Russia was suspended from the group back in 2014 after they annexed Crimea, which is a Ukrainian territory.
Right. Bringing Russia back into the fold is definitely controversial. Some European allies are cautiously optimistic. They see it as a potential path towards stability.
Makes sense.
But others are deeply concerned. They're worried about the implications for global security.
Yeah, I could see both sides of that.
And of course, we can't overlook Ukraine's perspective in all of this. They're understandably alarmed at the prospect of being sidelined in these crucial peace talks, especially given their ongoing conflict with Russia since the 2022 invasion.
Right. That invasion really shook things up on the world stage. Ukraine has been fighting for its survival ever since.
It's a complicated situation with a lot at stake. We'll have to see how it all unfolds.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, so we've talked about the CDC and this potential summit. Now let's shift gears to Elon Musk.
All right, sounds good. This time it's not about spaceships or self-driving cars.
Oh yeah? What's he up to now?
Well, it's a lawsuit. He's facing a lawsuit over his role in the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE for short.
DOGE, what is that?
It was created by President Trump with the goal of cutting federal spending.
So like streamlining the government.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what are they saying in this lawsuit?
Well, the main argument is that Musk's appointment to lead DOGE violates the Constitution. These types of positions usually require confirmation by the Senate, which didn't happen in this case.
Really? So he was just appointed without any approval from Congress?
Yeah, that's what the lawsuit is challenging.
That's interesting.
And it gets even more complex when you consider the powers that Musk has in this role. He has access to tons of sensitive government data. He can make significant budget cuts. He basically has the power to reshape federal agencies as he sees fit.
Wow. That's a lot of power for one person.
Right, and especially for someone who wasn't elected by the people.
Yeah. I can see why that would be controversial.
Exactly, and critics are pointing to some of his actions as red flags.
Like what?
Well, for example, he's already dismantled USAID.
USA?
Yeah, the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Oh, right.
Which has been a key player in global humanitarian aid for decades.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he just kind of got rid of it.
That seems pretty drastic. What are the legal experts saying about all of this?
Well, there's a lot of debate about whether this sets a dangerous precedent for executive power in the U.S. Some legal experts, including several attorneys general, are arguing that Trump is overstepping his constitutional boundaries by giving an unelected individual so much authority.
That's a really good point.
They're even comparing it to the powers of a king.
Wow. Acting like a king, huh?
It's a pretty serious accusation.
Yeah. So what happens now?
Well, the courts are going to have to decide whether this situation is constitutional or not. It's a really important case because it could have a major impact on the balance of power in our government.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to think about.
You know what's interesting is that all three of these stories we've talked about today, they all touch on this idea of power in some way.
Yeah, that's true.
The CDC story is about the power of language and information. The summit story is about the power of diplomacy and global politics. And this Elon Musk story is about the power of unelected individuals in government.
It's almost like it's all connected somehow.
It is. It all comes down to who has the power and how they use it.
You're right, it's a lot to process, even for news junkies like us.
It is, but that's why we're here, to help you connect the dots and understand what's really going on.
Exactly. So we encourage you to think about these stories and what they mean for you. What are your thoughts on these developments? Where do you think things will go from here?
And as always, head over to the Videntis for further analysis and in-depth coverage.
Share your thoughts. Connect with other news junkies. Let's keep the conversation going.
Because in a world that's constantly changing, it's more important than ever to stay informed and engaged.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is a lot to think about, especially on Valentine's Day. And we're supposed to be thinking about love and all that.
Yeah, but that's the world we live in, right? Complex and constantly evolving.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this Valentine's Day deep dive, we just want to encourage you to think critically about these stories and what they mean for you.
Yeah, these aren't just headlines. These are developments that could really have a big impact on our lives.
So we're challenging you to dig deeper. Go beyond just reading the headlines. Ask yourself what it means if the CDC is being restricted in its research. What are the long-term implications of these peace talks that might exclude Ukraine? What does it say about our democracy if unelected individuals are given immense power in the government?
Yeah, these are the kind of questions we need to be asking ourselves. We can't just be passive observers.
Absolutely not. Your voice matters. Your perspective matters. Engage in the conversation. Share your insights and challenge the status quo.
Exactly, and that's where the Videntis comes in. We're committed to giving you the information you need to understand what's happening in the world.
So head over to the Videntis for more analysis and discussion. Share your thoughts on these stories. Connect with other news junkies like yourself.
And let's continue this conversation together.
Yeah, because in a world that's saturated with information, it's more important than ever to stay informed and engaged.
That's right.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. And that's a wrap for today's Valentine's Day special. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.